In this update, we've got two strong cold fronts ready to impact the U.S. over the next 7 to 10 days. And heading into next week, that could lead to a little winter preview. So let's look at the setup going forward. We've got a ridge of high pressure that's going to be draped across the west coast. That's going to allow a trough to dig down from Canada and actually bring some of the coldest temperatures so far this fall season. And that's going to be impacting those areas and parts of the Dakotas, going into portions of Nebraska, all the way into Kansas this morning. In fact, they've got freeze warnings and freeze watches where some of these temperatures have actually dipped below the freezing mark, and that's only the beginning of what's to come over the course of the next week. So if you are new to the channel and like detailed weather breakdowns, hit the subscribe button and you're in. You get all my daily content on this channel, and I would love to reach 210,000 subscribers by the end of the month, and you can help me get there by subscribing to the channel and following all my daily content. So let's take a look at the setup on the satellite picture out in the tropics, because it's still active, folks, and we actually still have Tropical Storm Philippe out there into the Atlantic. And most guidance, in fact, actually has this continue to lift northbound and would likely impact portions of New England heading into this weekend, especially into Sunday, while we'll be watching these significant cold fronts coming down from the north. And we've even got a little bit of snow happening this morning in portions of the Dakotas. So if you look at the satellite picture, here's the actual track of Philippe, where it's going to go over the next couple of days. And most guidance actually has it, especially from the National Hurricane Center, of a 60, possibly 50 mile per hour tropical storm impacting Maine as we get into that Sunday time frame. But here's that first initial front coming in. That's already actually crossed portions of Oklahoma, and that will swing into Texas later on this afternoon into the evening time frame. And this front actually makes it all the way down into Mexico and will eventually settle down in the Gulf of Mexico. But here's the other front coming in from the Dakotas, and that's actually snow back behind it. A little bit of a reinforcing shot of colder air. So we are looking at some snow flying in the portions of the Dakotas this morning, but that trough will continue to build and likely can continue to shift through portions of the Ohio Valley as well as into the mid-Atlantic. And we'll be watching Philippe every step of the way as we continue to lift further north. But underneath that, on the backside, it's got very dry air. The thing about this air mass, on the backside of this air mass, extremely dry. And that's one of the reasons why the temperatures is actually going to be plunging so far, the coldest temperature so far this fall, because of all the radiational cooling and all that blue highlighted. Look at the freezing mark. That actually extends all the way deep down in Kansas, going into Missouri. That's actual temperatures, folks, into the 30s in Oklahoma. You're going to feel it. I mean, again, this is the first true fall front. I mean, it's been very warm, very hot across these regions. And with these temperatures, the first time you're going to feel it, it's going to feel a lot colder because your body's not really acclimated to these temperatures, right as of right now. So, but it's going to be feeling a welcome sight, and it's definitely going to be feeling a lot more like fall out there as we get deeper into the weekend. And look at the wind chills, folks. I mean, that's definitely some chilly stuff for October standards. We're talking widespread in the 20s for multiple states as you wake up, on tomorrow morning on Saturday. And that colder air will continue to plunge southbound, and back behind it, we've got that extremely dry air. So we're watching several features. We've got this Eastern Pacific storm that's really not going to be affecting anybody, but there's actually another system going to be trailing back behind that one. A lot of guidance is actually having this potentially could form or likely cross over into the Gulf of Mexico, and we'll be dealing with that heading in the next week. But first and foremost, we got to deal with Philippe as this gets closer into New England. And gosh, they just cannot catch a break. It seems every other day they get impacted from a storm, and yet we have another one heading into Maine, and that's going to bring some more heavier rains across a good part of New England and some higher winds. This is likely going to be impacting that area about 50, 60 miles an hour. And there's the initiation of that cold front with the high pressure signaling in on the backside. That's extremely dry air. The dew points, I mean, it's going to be feeling fall crisp air. This is about as good as it gets behind that front, as you know, very clear skies, sunshine conditions during the day, but cool, feeling more like fall, as this will continue to plunge all the way down into Mexico. And there's the actual track from the latest update from the National Hurricane Center. Would likely take it onshore near Bar Harbor sometime on Sunday afternoon, heading into New England. And that's going to bring another round of several inches of rain across these regions as this continues to hook and lift go at left and actually end up somewhere into portions of Ontario and bring in actually some snow. If you can believe that. So we've got that cold air, right? We've got the cold air coming in off the northwest flow. There's the rain in Mexico. That's a sign of that cold front where it's going to be. It's going to be going all the way down into Mexico. So everybody's going to be feeling the effects from this one, while we be looking at some heavier rains heading into, you know, Saturday night, Sunday afternoon time frame into a good part of Maine. And then once this, you know, cold air gets entrenched in this low pressure, it's actually going to be bringing some pretty significant snow flying in a good part of Ontario and portions of Quebec here up in Canada. So yeah, don't be surprised if heavy snow kind of breaks out across this region, you know, heading into Sunday afternoon as this, as Philippe gets pulled into that, you know, colder air mass coming in from the northwest. So that's going to be feeling a lot more like winter up there, and a little bit of preview. And for the rest of the country, you're going to be waking up on Sunday morning, and again, these wind chills bring the 40s all the way into central and North Texas, the Texas Panhandle, all the way down into the southeast as well. Look at Mississippi, into Alabama, heading into Georgia. Those are 40s, folks. I mean, even some you know, lower 50s for wind chills, you know, heading into that Sunday morning, even in the Florida, you know, panhandle. So everybody across the U.S. definitely gets in the action on this first initial, you know, strong cold front. And here's the setup going into next week. So with that dry air, once the winds start turning around, we're going to be seeing a rapid warm up for several days in the middle of the country. So those areas that have, you know, gotten the freezing temperatures and the definitely cool shot, it's going to be rapidly warming up. And as fast as it rapidly warms up, it's going to be another significant cold front is going to be building in off the west, and this has got more legs with it than this first one, and actually it's got a lot colder conditions and probably even some snow on the backside. So there's going to be a lot of moving parts heading into the next week. So once we get that southwest wind coming back in the middle of the week, those temperatures are going to warm, but we're also going to be eyeing the effects of this eastern Pacific storm and a lot of the remnants trying to cross over into the Gulf of Mexico. So we could be looking at another low pressure center enter in portions of the southern Gulf, along with that stalled frontal boundary in the Gulf of Mexico. Most guidance actually has this possibly hinting at another potential weak tropical system. Whether it forms or not, it doesn't matter, because it's going to be sending some heavier rains, and the overall push is going to keep it down towards the southeast and likely into Florida, because again, we're going to have that other strong cold front coming in from the northwest, and it's going to be pressing it southbound. So this is likely going to be crossing over from Central America into the southern Gulf and try to get its act together, but it's going to have a lot of wind shear associated with it. So it's more likely not going to be forming, but it's going to be sending rain, heavy rains in a good part of Florida. And yeah, this also could be coming up the East Coast, and also could be bringing some more heavier rains to New England as we get into later next week. So here's the setup by Thursday. We've got another significant cold shot coming in from the northwest, and this one's got more legs with it than the first one. So it's got the even colder temperatures, and it's actually going to be cold enough to actually start snowing in a lot of the higher elevations in the intermountain west. So we're talking places like Wyoming, and a lot of these mountain regions in Colorado is going to be starting to see the snow flying, and it actually could be getting close enough to Denver to seeing the first snowfall of the season for them. And as we'll be watching this low pressure center likely impacting Florida by then, with that heavier rain pushing back into the state, with complements of that little low pressure center down here into the Gulf of Mexico. But there's that secondary shot, right? I mean, these are temperatures 20 to 25 degrees below average. So that's going to kick off some snow in the higher elevations, and then some heavier rains are really going to be draped across a good part of the Illinois region into Indiana, as well as into Ohio. And that colder blast also continues to push southbound and likely also clears into Mexico. So again, everybody gets into the action on this particular front. And one thing I mentioned, a lot of this is going to be, going to be impacting towards the weekend. So you're going to be seeing your coldest and coolest temperatures heading into your weekend. So it's going to be feeling a lot chillier on the weekends than it is going to be like during the week with this initial setup over the next 7 to 10 days. Because here's the setup by Saturday. So we're going to be watching the remnants. Remember, you got the cold air pressing. We got, once this cold front moves through, we got high pressure. Again, another high pressure coming in, radiational cooling will allow these temperatures to drop like a rock. And we'll be watching this low pressure coming in through the Gulf, crossing over possibly Florida again. And then, yes, reemerging, heading in off the East Coast. And we've got another fairly significant low pressure center hanging off of New England again. And gosh, this could be like a little preview of what's to come for this winter, because we've seen literally storm after storm after storm impacting, coming in, originating off the southeast coast and then coming up the coast and impacting with heavier rain. And obviously, once more colder air gets intruded in the pattern, then we'll be looking at a lot of heavier snow across this region as El Nino continues to build. So, but on the backside, we've got those colder temperatures, and for those areas across the deep south that's experienced just crazy hot temperatures for all summer long, this is definitely a welcome sight to see, because they haven't seen numbers like this in a long time. And those numbers continue to drop, and those 50s extend, even the 40s get into a good part of the southern plains. Widespread, right? All these areas in green are well into the 40s, if not into the 30s, as we head into next weekend by that Saturday, Sunday timeframe towards the October 15th. And it's going to bring the snow, right? So we've got this first initial setup with Philippe coming in, and the northwest flow that's going to set up a low pressure center up here in Ontario and Quebec, and ringing out some heavier snows over the next couple of days from Sunday into Monday timeframe. And then heading into next week, once that significant cold front comes in on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, could be looking at some light to moderate, if not almost some heavier snows at times, especially as you go into Colorado. And some of these latest guidance and some of these numbers are spitting out some pretty good numbers, right? I mean, we got some foot locations could unfold across portions between Colorado Springs and Castle Rock up here, and we likely could see their first initial snowflakes flying into Denver as we go into later next week into next weekend. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and be sure to watch my winter forecast after this update, and catch my next update while I protect you before and after the storm.